Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. So a senator out of Oklahoma today said that ISIS is readily preparing to blow up an American city. This could be a major American city like Chicago, New York City, maybe even potentially Los Angeles. And the threat is real, according to these people. Both Republicans, both sides of the aisle, and Democrats now wanting war. And I think that sounds the alarm and also tells us something very interesting about just how dangerous the landscape truly is, not just here in America, but abroad. You know, I think if you ask most Republicans today, maybe your friends and family members, whether or not they think we should go bomb the Middle East right now and take out ISIS, they would say yes. They would agree with airstrikes. They would agree with wiping out good portions of this part of the world. And if you would now ask Democrats post the James Foley beheading whether or not they think it's a good thing that Obama's overseas, bombing with limited strikes. See how they want to massage the turd. And Republicans at least just say, let's go to war. Democrats say it's limited airstrikes. They polish the turd, make it look all pretty. And that's how they explain it to themselves and explain it to their constituents. But both groups, Republicans and Democrats, which really make up the same paradigm itself, the same pyramid Ponzi scheme, both want war. And that tells us something, because the threat is real. Very potentially we could have an American city go down. And it would be absolutely catastrophic, not just here in America, but for the global economy. I mean, take a look at what happened in 2001, the September 11, 2001 terror attacks, whether or not you believe it was an inside job or not. It crashed the entire global financial system, not just the financial system here in the United States of America, which we're still paying the price to today with 0% interest rates. And even yesterday, a $16.5 billion fine waived on Bank of America for the Ponzi scheme that they were running with mortgage-backed securities and acquiring firms like Countrywide. We're still living through the repercussions of that. And that was just a couple buildings that fell down. Could you imagine if an entire American city just was wiped off the face of the map? It would end America, I think, in its entirety. And even if it did survive, it would be a shadow of its former self. But what's more important here is the rhetoric. Again, all this is about a push and build up for a narrative of war, what I believe to be world and global war. And we're seeing this manifest in the Middle East today. We see this with the caliphate that's been declared, the spilling over of terrorists on the ground that have been supported and funded and armed by the U.S. government and Western interests spill over into Iraq. This gigantic extremist Islamic Muslim state is what we have today. And in the meantime, the president, who's really looking much like an isolationist right now, in isolation playing golf on the golf course, has totally removed himself from the discussion. You know, I think because he's so narcissistic and he's so into himself and he had such high hopes with his hope and change rhetoric in his campaign in 2008, also his withdrawal of Iraq, that he's almost just gone into his own seclusion now. Now, I would argue that it was all intentional. Again, he's accomplished the mission, and that was to destroy America. That was what community organizing was. That's what the Saul Alinsky Front is. But even if you don't believe that, even if you don't believe the conspiracy angle that people are actually out for themselves and they've been radically transitioning the country, which is just blatantly obvious, even if you don't believe that, the president, at the very least, is grossly incompetent with his geopolitical actions in the Middle East that have only helped to increase the boiling point, that boiling pot of water now overflowing, and now both Republicans and Democrats wanting war. Some of the people I talk to say we should wipe the Middle East completely off the map. And I think that in general, a lot of Americans agree with that. And again, it shows just how dangerous of a situation we are today. America wants war, both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. And it's exactly why you're going to get it. And it's exactly why the president's continued to bypass Congress, bypass our branches of government with his attack on Libya, his attack on Iraq, and now airstrikes, which are now in the dozens without approval from Congress. But the American people being so propagandized by the system today, the mainstream media, and these cherry-picked events like the beheading of James Foley are now on board. And it just shows you how easy it is to manipulate and to convey that message to the American people, to just radicalize regular Americans into supporting something that's completely grotesque and murderous overseas. You know, people don't want to admit to themselves, especially here in America, that it's actually murder and violence that maintains order in a society. In a lot of ways, America can probably identify with ISIS. You know, what might seem barbaric to some is pretty much the same thing we're doing over there. Whether or not you want to polish the turd and say that drone strikes are more humane and killing civilians that way, or the direct beheading, I might even argue that beheading, although barbaric and although insane, at least shows you up close and personal just how murderous it is, and just how real it actually is, just how grotesque and sickening war is. Again, there's nothing pretty about war. It's murder, it's death, it's the killing of a lot of innocent people. And whether or not you want to polish that turd and, use the term limited drone strikes or not, limited airstrikes, doesn't matter. You still have blood on your hands. And America wants war. Both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. Likelihood of an American city being bombed and totally eradicated off the map? Possible. But it's been your government that's allowed this to happen, whether or not it was direct manipulation and it was the engineered game plan, or it's totally gross incompetence. Again, as Obama plays golf and works on his swing, and the media wants to know why he's in isolation. I know why, you know why. Any person with a thinking brain or a thinking cap on knows why. It's all about the biggest war you've ever seen in your life. It'll be much worse than World War I, much worse than World War II. And you have your government to thank for it. So support that war, America, you dumb shits. I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.